for fans giving Brianne January death threats. I don't think anyone's ever mentioned that. I don't think anyone has ever said those words. And I'm literally like in the video, I'm like, it's just a disaster. It's just an all-around disaster. But this is here. There was no timetable for Caitlin Clark to play, so it's impossible to say if it was impacted. What? So it remains the same, to give Caitlin as much time needed to ensure she's back fully healthy, which every day she's working hard to do. That's literally like saying, I shit you not.
The current situation surrounding Caitlin Clark's injury status has become increasingly confusing and contradictory. Multiple conflicting reports have emerged from various team representatives, creating significant confusion among observers and fans. The confusion stems from contradictory statements between different team spokespeople, Chloe Peterson and Scott Agnes, who appear to be providing different information about the same injury situation. The incident involved Brianne January stepping on Clark's foot and ankle, which re-aggravated an existing bone bruise during what many consider a challenging season filled with setbacks. Recent statements from team officials indicate there was no established timeline for Clark's return to play.
Every day she's working hard to do. That's literally like saying, I shit you not. That is like saying, there is no, or this specific player somehow had this crazy fall where they snapped their left Achilles and they snapped their right ACL, so they can't even walk. Or sorry, they snapped their left Achilles, so it's a year-long thing, and then they snapped their right ACL. And they're like, you know what? We didn't actually have an official timeline.
They claim it remains impossible to determine whether the ankle incident affected her recovery process. The organization maintains they will provide Clark with necessary time to ensure complete health restoration, which she continues working toward daily. This approach resembles a scenario where medical staff might claim that because no official recovery timeline existed for an initial injury, any subsequent injury cannot be considered a setback. The logic suggests that without predetermined return dates, additional injuries technically don't alter existing rehabilitation plans. Scott Agnes appears to have been proven correct in his initial assessment of the situation.
ACL. And they're like, you know what? We didn't actually have an official timeline for them coming back from the Achilles injury. So technically, it didn't affect, the ACL tear didn't affect anything. Like, that's basically what they're trying to say. Because we have no timeline for her coming back, we can't possibly know whether or not this injury, which stops her rehabbing, affects things. So yes, Scott Agnes wins this one. I think Chloe Peterson's talking to people in the organization that wanted to make it,
Meanwhile, Chloe Peterson seems to have been communicating information provided by organizational sources who wanted to minimize the impact of the ankle injury on Clark's overall recovery timeline. The fundamental disagreement centers on whether the ankle injury affected Clark's return to play. Despite semantic arguments from the organization, the ankle injury likely did create setbacks in her rehabilitation process. Peterson was apparently informed that since no specific return date was established, the team couldn't definitively state whether the ankle incident impacted Clark's recovery timeline. This reasoning represents flawed logic.
Wanted to make it, that wanted to say, oh, it didn't change anything. Can't believe people think a bone bruise wouldn't impact the return to play of someone already rehabbing injury. Yep. Translation, the ankle injury did set Caitlin Clark back, semantics, gymnastics aside. So basically, I would say Chloe Peterson has been told, which is what she did say, that, oh, I don't know if we can't say whether or not it affected Caitlin Clark's return to play because, she never had a return to play.
The absence of a predetermined timeline doesn't mean additional injuries cannot affect recovery progress. The organization uses this absence of timeline to argue that no setbacks are measurable, which creates an illogical situation. The entire situation has become unnecessarily complex for what should be straightforward injury management. The fundamental principle should be simple. If Clark is healthy enough to play, she should participate. If she requires more recovery time, she should continue rehabilitation.
Like there was never a time where she was set to return. So, that's the logic, and I'm like, that is the most flawed logic ever. It is the logic they're using, but it's so flawed. So this has been a debacle. News podium. None of this makes sense. Why are we making a simple situation so complex? If she's ready, and let her play. If she's not ready, then don't play her. Health comes first. But getting your story straight and her status comes second. Yeah. All my years being a sports fan, I've never been so confused about injury and recovery, let alone the face of the league. The closest thing was Brady when he had stitches in his throwing arm during the playoffs, but that was Belichick being an asshole strategist.
Player health must remain the priority, with clear communication about status coming second. Throughout years of sports coverage, rarely has injury recovery been so confusing, particularly involving the league's most prominent player. The closest comparable situation involved Brady's throwing hand stitches during playoffs, though that involved strategic information management rather than genuine confusion. The only similar precedent might be Lonzo Ball's injury situation, where what appeared to be a minor meniscus problem requiring 4 weeks recovery ultimately ended his career. This comparison raises concerning questions about Clark's situation.
On the face of the league, the closest thing was Brady when he had stitches in his throwing arm during the playoffs, but that was Belichick being an asshole strategist. There's one injury I can remember, which is all these random confusing things, and it's Lonzo Ball's injury. And let's just hope it's not Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball, basically his career ended. His career ended over like a minor meniscus injury where he was supposed to be out for 4 weeks. And his entire career ended. Scott Agnes Washman, Scott Agnes was right about this. Scott Agnes was right about this. He was 100% right.
Agnes correctly assessed the situation from the beginning. His medical perspective indicated the ankle injury did impact Clark's current status, creating additional complications in her recovery process. The organization's argument essentially claims that without established timelines, no injury can be considered a setback. This logic could theoretically apply to any subsequent injury, regardless of severity, as long as no original timeline existed. Such reasoning represents fundamentally flawed medical and logical thinking.
Scott Agnes was right about this. He was 100% right. He was 100% right. Meanwhile, Scott Agnes said it from his own mouth. The ankle did impact her current status. The whole thing's a mess. I mean, the argument the Fever have made is we've had no timetable, so therefore, like they literally could say we have no timetable for recovery. So Caitlin Clark's right arm got decapitated. So, because she had no timeline for her groin, who's to say if her right arm getting decapitated made any difference? Or she goes and, that's just an example off the top.
The situation has generated unnecessary speculation and confusion. The injury occurred when Clark rolled her ankle, affecting her rehabilitation ability. Information about this incident didn't emerge until 2 weeks later, adding to the communication problems. The organization's position that anything preventing Clark's return cannot be measured as a setback due to timeline absence creates absurd logical conclusions. Under this reasoning, any injury, regardless of severity, couldn't be considered relevant to recovery progress if no original timeline was established.
She goes and, that's just an example off the top of my head. Did I say right arm got decapitated? Right arm get chopped off her body. You can't decapitates her head. Or she just got decapitated. I'm sorry, it's 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. You can call me out for all the dumb shit I'll say in this. For all my misspeaking at 2 a.m. You're well within your rights to do that. You guys are well within your rights to do all of that. That's all I'm gonna say. But it's a.
Both reporters appear to be operating within their respective frameworks. Peterson likely communicated information provided by team sources, while Agnes provided independent medical assessment. Peterson's position isn't necessarily incorrect within the organization's logic system, though that system itself appears deeply flawed. The fundamental issue remains the organization's insistence that timeline absence prevents measurement of setbacks. This creates a situation where additional injuries theoretically cannot affect recovery progress, regardless of their actual impact on rehabilitation activities.
According to them, Caitlin Clark was not at the game in Connecticut yesterday, which was that she was staying back to rehab for a potential ramp up to her return to the floor. And the Fever have this extended break, right? I know there was a death in her boyfriend's family. Of course, everybody always, Conor McCaffrey thoughts go out to his family and loved ones. So that was initial speculation. So I don't know if the Fever were just trying to clear.
Given these complications and communication issues, Clark's return to play remains highly uncertain. The confusion surrounding her status, combined with the apparent severity of her ongoing rehabilitation needs, suggests significant challenges ahead for both player and organization. The Indiana Fever made a roster adjustment on Monday, August 18th, 2025, by releasing guard Kyra Lambert according to official WNBA transaction records. This move comes shortly after Lambert joined the team, making her tenure with the organization particularly brief. Lambert's departure raises immediate questions about potential connections to Caitlin Clark's anticipated return to active play.
That was initial speculation, so I don't know if the Fever were just trying to clear the air there to not make it too personal, or if indeed it was just simply the case that because it was a one-game trip and they had this break, Clark was staying behind in order to be ready to play or continue her ramp up to a return to play. And then this move comes the next day. Now, why is this move curious? Well, Lambert was on a 7-day deal, so the Fever could just be looking at this break knowing that her contract was going to expire anyway.
The timing appears significant given recent developments surrounding Clark's rehabilitation status and the team's roster construction under league hardship provisions. The organization provided clarification regarding Clark's absence from Sunday's road contest against Connecticut, stating that she remained behind to continue rehabilitation work in preparation for a possible return to competition. This explanation addressed earlier speculation about her unavailability, with team officials emphasizing that the decision focused on maximizing recovery time during the extended break period. Under current hardship regulations, the Fever were permitted to carry 2 additional players while Clark remained sidelined. However, league rules require the release of 1 hardship signing once the injured player becomes available for return.
Anyway, and not wanting to waste her time. But under the hardship rules, as that it has been, put out there and publicized, the Fever only had to release one of the 2 players between Odyssey Sims and Kyra Lambert once Caitlin Clark was back. But one of them was going to have to go once they picked up 2 players. Clearly, Odyssey Sims has played herself into more of a role for the Fever. She got a bunch of minutes.
Between Lambert and Odyssey Sims, the choice appears straightforward based on recent performance contributions. Sims demonstrated her value during Sunday's matchup, logging substantial playing time with 42 minutes on the court. Meanwhile, Lambert did not participate in game action, suggesting a clear hierarchy in terms of immediate roster needs and player readiness. This performance disparity likely influenced the organization's decision-making process. Broadcasting reports indicated optimism regarding Clark's potential return to practice activities this week, with possible game dates of August 22nd, 24th, or 26th mentioned as targets for her comeback.
More of a role for the Fever. She got a bunch of minutes in the game on Sunday, 42 minutes for Sims. Lambert didn't play, right? So you can see relative one to the other where the Fever were looking at things from the pecking order standpoint. Now, there's also the Sophie Cunningham injury, but to be honest, I'm not sure how that would impact things unless they felt they needed somebody at that position rather than more depth at the point guard position. But
however, team officials appear to be exercising considerable caution throughout this rehabilitation process. Head coach Stephanie White's recent comments suggested measured expectations regarding the timeline, indicating that while hope exists for Clark's regular season return, the organization remains committed to prioritizing long-term health over immediate availability. This deliberate approach reflects the significant investment the franchise has in protecting their cornerstone player. Sunday's victory against Connecticut demonstrated the type of competitive spirit and resilience that could motivate an injured star player to accelerate recovery efforts. The team's performance showcased their potential when healthy and fighting together, providing additional incentive for a swift but safe return.
More depth at the point guard position, but with Sophie down, they were down personnel regardless, and they didn't have to make a roster move because of what happened with Sophie. There's no direct cause and effect. Now, if a subsequent transaction comes tomorrow, we shall see. I'd really have to dig into the rules on the hardships and all that. But we did know that once Caitlin Clark was back, one of the 2 hardship signings was going to have to.
The contest also produced concerning injury news regarding Sophie Cunningham, who suffered what appeared to be a significant knee injury during play. Medical analysis of the incident suggests several possible diagnoses ranging from minor contusions to more serious ligament or patella complications. Doctor Brian Sutter's injury assessment identified the mechanism as a forced valgus load on Cunningham's right knee, where external pressure pushed the joint inward beyond normal range. This type of impact can result in various injuries to the medial structures of the knee joint.
Hardship signings was going to have to go. So that's naturally where people's heads were thinking when it was reported on the ESPN broadcast that Clark, the hope was she would return to practice this week with target dates the 22nd, 24th, 26th, those games being thrown out as potential return dates. Now, I don't have any other updates on that. I mean, I took Stephanie White's comments as they hope still she returns to
While an ACL tear remains possible with this injury pattern, the specific positioning and force vectors observed suggest other potential diagnoses may be more likely. MCL strain represents a significant concern given the inward stress placed on the medial collateral ligament during the incident. Patella dislocation emerged as another possibility, particularly given Cunningham's immediate reaction of maintaining knee flexion following the contact. This positioning often indicates instability in the kneecap's normal tracking pattern, which can result from the type of force observed during the play. The severity of any potential diagnosis could significantly impact Indiana's roster planning for the remainder of the season.
Comments as they hope still she returns to at the regular season a little less confident than the previous timeline that was expressed, because she could have said we're hoping she's back at practice this week and part of the ramp-up process. But you also don't know for sure until somebody's fully healthy. And it is my understanding that they are being extraordinarily deliberate with every step in this process when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But like I said on Sunday, that's the kind of win, if I'm CC, that I watch and say, I got to get back out there. Like, nothing can stop me from rejoining this team this season.
Even less serious injuries like hyperextension or bone contusions could limit Cunningham's availability during crucial final weeks of competition. MRI results will provide definitive answers regarding the extent and nature of Cunningham's injury, but the visual evidence suggests a concerning mechanism that warrants careful evaluation and potentially extended recovery time. Lambert's release timing occurring immediately after this injury sequence raises questions about whether additional roster moves might follow. However, Cunningham's injury status alone would not necessarily require immediate personnel changes unless the organization planned to sign a replacement at her position.
If I'm CC, that I watch and say, I got to get back out there. Like, nothing can stop me from rejoining this team this season. That fight that they showed out on the court. Part of that was Sophie Cunningham's injury, which we still don't have the word on. She's getting an MRI, or she did probably already get the MRI. But there's a YouTuber, or a doctor is a better way to put it, Brian Sutterer, who does a good job with his injury videos. And he took a stab at Sophie Cunningham and what happened. Here's a little bit of his video.
First thing first, of course, we're dealing with a right knee injury for Cunningham, and this is going to be contact.
The interconnected nature of these roster developments reflects the complex decisions facing playoff contending teams during the final stretch of regular season play. Balancing immediate competitive needs with long-term player health creates challenging scenarios for coaching staff and front office personnel. Clark's potential return represents the most significant factor in determining Indiana's championship aspirations. Her presence transforms both offensive capabilities and overall team dynamics in ways that could elevate the organization from playoff contender to legitimate title threat.